Welcome back. The World Health Organization has reported the highest single-day rise in global coronavirus cases as over 100,000 tested positive. Worldwide, the infections have surpassed 5 million, while the death count has crossed 328,000. In the US, more than 1,500 people have died in the past 24 hours, raising the total to over 93,000. More in this report.
Despite hundreds of deaths every day in the US, all 50 American states have partially reopened after a 2-month shutdown. The outbreak is on a sharp rise in Latin America, as Brazil has recorded 888 deaths and Mexico registered 424 in a single day. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has warned that the pandemic is a long way from being over.
In the last 24 hours, there have been 106,000 cases reported to WHO, the most in a single day since the outbreak began. Almost 2/3 of these cases were reported in just 4 countries.
The pandemic is threatening to ruin tourism industry vital to many countries' economy worldwide. New Zealand wants employers to consider switching to a 4-day work week to promote tourism in the country. Greece has also announced to kick off its tourist season next month, with international charter flights resuming in July.
The tourism season will begin on June 15th, a date on which seasonal hotels will be able to open. And gradually from July 1st, direct international flights will begin towards tourism destinations. There will be sample testing for visitors, and health and hygienic protocols will be adhered, which will not cast a shadow on our bright sun nor the natural beauty of Greece.
China's central city of Wuhan, where the pandemic originated, has issued a total ban on the hunting, breeding and human consumption of wild animals. The mainland has reported only 2 new coronavirus cases, including 1 imported case.
Pakistan's COVID-19 death toll has risen to 1,017 as the country recorded 32 new deaths since yesterday. The health ministry says nearly 2,200 new cases were reported, bringing the total to over 48,000. The ministry said 14,155 patients of coronavirus have recovered so far. It said over 17,300 infections were recorded in Punjab, nearly 19,000 in Sindh, and more than 6,800 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Meanwhile, Balochistan has reported almost 3,000 cases and the capital Islamabad 1,235. Meanwhile, the UN and Pakistan have launched a cash assistance program for refugee families hit hard by the deadly virus. Under the program, 36,000 families will receive rupees 12,000 each for 4 months. In another news, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says a global response is needed to contain the novel coronavirus. Addressing a session of the World Economic Forum via video link, Khan said debt relief for poor countries is vital to divert resources to healthcare. The Prime Minister said his government is trying to strike a balance between preventing the spread of the virus and keeping the economy running. He said the developing world does not possess the fiscal space needed to deal with the economic fallout. Khan said that the G20 countries are working on a debt relief initiative, but more details are awaited. He warned that the upcoming year is not just a challenge for Pakistan, but for the entire globe. Prime Minister Imran Khan says India may stage a false flag operation to divert the world's attention from the ongoing genocide in occupied Kashmir. In a series of tweets, Khan said the Indian government is committing war crimes in occupied Kashmir and trying to change its demography. The Prime Minister added, 900,000 personnel of the Indian forces have subjected Kashmiris to brutal oppression. His comments come a day after Indian forces torched dozens of homes in Srinagar and killed a freedom fighter. Kashmir has been under India's illegal curfew since August last year. Pakistan's envoy to the UN, Munir Akram, says Muslims in India and occupied Kashmir are in grave danger. During a meeting of OIC, Akram said the ruling party wants to remove Islamic history from India. The envoy said expatriate Hindu extremists actively promoted Islamophobia agenda and even insulted their host countries. He said, as the world is battling COVID-19, New Delhi has secretly allowed non-natives inside the occupied valley. He said through the new domicile law, India is planning to turn the valley into a Hindu majority region from a Muslim majority area. The other envoys supported Pakistan's proposal and need for a concerted OIC position on Islamophobia at the United Nations. The U.S. envoy to South Asia, Alice Wells, has praised Pakistan for its solid cooperation for peace in Afghanistan. In an online media briefing, Wells reflected on U.S. policies in the region during the past 3 years. The envoy said the U.S. has been strong collaboration between Khalilzad and Pakistani leadership to bring the Taliban on negotiation table. She said improvement for a stronger U.S.-Pakistan partnership is premised on ability to work together constructively to advance peace. Answering a question, Wells said it is important for India to be close to Taliban as part of its traditional ties with Kabul. The envoy said the U.S. is seeking to have a political settlement, seeing the Taliban as part of government structure in Afghanistan. The Taliban say any mechanism other than the Doha deal will further impede the already harmed Afghan peace process. In a meeting with U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad in Doha, the group's leaders discussed the implementation of the pact. Spokesperson Suhail Shaheen says the Taliban told Khalilzad that further delay will only make matters worse. Khalilzad also met President Ashraf Ghani and High Council for National Reconciliation head Abdullah in Kabul. The U.S. envoy said violence by all sides must fall as innocent Afghans have borne far too much in the war. He said all sides are responsible for implementation of the Doha deal, including the prisoner releases by the Afghan government and the Taliban. China has accused India of trespassing on the line of actual control between the two countries in Sikkim and Ladakh. Beijing says New Delhi is attempting to unilaterally change the status on the demarcation line. In a statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said that the Indian Army is crossing into its territory and blocking its patrols. It said they crossed the western section of the Sino-Indian border and the Sikkim section to enter China. The ministry said the matter had been taken up with India, asking for immediate withdrawal of personnel across the line. Sikkim's Nakula Pass is one of 4 areas that had seen aggressive action between the Chinese and Indian troops since mid-April this year. Now, China has slammed the U.S. for its decision to congratulate Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen on her inauguration. The Foreign Ministry said U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has seriously damaged the peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait. The ministry spokesperson said Beijing will take necessary measures and Washington must bear the consequences. In a speech after being sworn in for her second and final term in office, Tsai said relations between Taiwan and China had reached a turning point. Tsai and her Democratic Progressive Party won January's presidential and parliamentary elections by a landslide, vowing to stand up to China. While China claims Taiwan as its own and says it will be brought under Beijing's control by force if needed. China cut off no formal talks with Taiwan in 2016 after Tsai first won the election. The U.S. has approved a $180 million sale of heavyweight torpedoes to Taiwan. The State Department said proposed weapons sale serves the U.S. national economic and security interests. It said sale will also help improve security of recipient and assist in maintaining political stability, military balance, and economic progress in the region. It said Mk-48 Mod 6 advanced technology heavyweight torpedoes, which can be launched from submarine, are being provided from existing U.S. Navy stock. The move is likely to further escalate tensions between Washington and Beijing as China considers Taiwan a part of its territory. Meanwhile, China has slammed the U.S. for its decision to congratulate Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen on her inauguration. The Foreign Ministry said U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has seriously damaged the peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait. U.S. President Donald Trump has again lashed out at China over the coronavirus pandemic, blaming Beijing for mass worldwide killing. In a tweet, Trump said China released a statement blaming everybody except itself for the virus, which has now killed hundreds of thousands of people. The tweet is the latest heated rhetoric from the White House, where Trump is making attacks on Beijing a centerpiece of his re-election bid. He said it was the incompetence of China and nothing else that did this mass killing worldwide. The virus first appeared in the Chinese city of Wuhan last December and spread rapidly around the world. Trump initially played down the seriousness of the threat and said that repeatedly China was addressing the outbreak. He later pivoted to blaming China for allowing the international spread. China has slammed the US sanctions on a Shanghai-based company, calling it illegal. Washington blacklisted Shanghai Saint Logistics Limited for allegedly acting on behalf of US blacklisted Mahan Air. In a briefing, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said Beijing will firmly safeguard the legitimate rights of Chinese companies. He urged the US to immediately correct its mistake. Earlier, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that China was one of the few countries that still welcomed the Iranian airline. He said the airline used to transport Iran's arms and militants, and anyone doing business with it runs the risk of sanctions. We're taking a short break, but stay tuned for more news. Welcome back. The US has sanctioned Iran's Interior Minister Abdulreza Rahmani Fazli. The Treasury Department says the fresh round of sanctions targeted 9 individuals, including the minister, and 3 entities in total. In a statement, the department said Fazli authorized the law enforcement forces to use lethal force in response to protests in November. The Treasury also blacklisted 7 senior officials of the LEF and a provincial commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Meanwhile, President Hassan Rouhani said US sanctions have hurt the Iranians, but they also led to self-sufficiency in many areas. State TV quoted Rouhani as saying that Tehran has become self-reliant in gasoline and diesel production. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has said Tehran will support any nation that opposes and fights the Zionist regime of Israel. In a message, the Supreme Leader said Iran has no hesitation in declaring this. He said the comprehensive struggle by Palestinians should continue till usurpers submit to a referendum. He said the people of Palestine must determine what political system they want. Khamenei said a proposal for a referendum to choose the type of government in Palestine was registered with the UN as offered by Iran. The Supreme Leader eliminating the Zionist regime does not mean eliminating Jews, as Iran is not against Jews. The UN has told Israel to drop plans to annex parts of the occupied West Bank, joining a growing international chorus of opposition. In a UNSC meeting, envoy Nikolai Mladenov also called on Russia, US, EU and the UK to mediate. Mladenov said the continuous threat of annexation by Israel is a most serious violation of international law. He said it will be a devastating blow to the two-state solution and close the door to talks. The UN envoy said he will meet Palestine's Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh today to discuss their latest statements. Meanwhile, France has also warned Israel against annexing the West Bank and said the move will be considered a serious violation. US President Donald Trump and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron have called for urgent de-escalation in Libya. The White House said the two leaders expressed concern over foreign interference in the country. The Libyan government has been under attack by Khalifa Haftar's forces since April 2019. On Monday, forces loyal to the UN-backed government recaptured Al-Watan air base occupied by militias for 6 years. Experts say the capture of Al-Watan will allow government forces to fully focus on repelling Haftar's fighters in southern Tripoli. The Libyan army has destroyed another Russian-made air defense system in the city of Tarhuna, southeast of Tripoli. In a statement, a military spokesman said the government forces have destroyed 4 Pantsir-type air defense systems in total. He said retaking the town of Al-Asaba is essential to liberating Tarhuna, as it will help cut off supply lines to Haftar's forces. Meanwhile, the area's social council said it has decided to join the government of National Accord based. The city of Mesde in southern Tripoli has also declared its support for the GNA. Earlier, the Libyan army recaptured Al-Watia air base occupied by Haftar's militias for 6 years. The UN Refugee Agency has warned that internally displaced people camps in Yemen are a ticking bomb for coronavirus. UNHCR country representative Jean-Nicolas Bouza said that there are over 3.6 million IDPs in those camps. Yemen has announced 184 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus and 30 deaths. But health experts believe the real number of cases is far higher given the lack of tracking and testing capabilities. The UN representative also voiced concern that migrants are being stigmatized as vectors of the virus. Bouza said COVID-19 symptoms match with diseases such as dengue fever, complicating efforts to estimate the extent of the pandemic in Yemen. In Thailand, police have arrested a dozen Rohingya migrants from Myanmar on charges of illegal entry. Police said they are investigating the possibility that they could be victims of human trafficking while trying to reach Malaysia. Police said the Rohingya migrants were discovered in the Mae Sot district in western Thailand near a bridge that connects the country to Myanmar. After questioning the detainees, police said they hope to reach Malaysia by bus. All are expected to be repatriated to Myanmar. Ukraine has called for direct talks with Russia over the troubled eastern Donbas region. President Volodymyr Zelensky says he wants to speak to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Zelensky said he also hopes to hold discussions with Germany and France after the coronavirus pandemic subsides. It was the second time Zelensky held a meeting with all Ukrainian, regional and foreign media to mark 1 year of his presidency. The Ukrainian president expressed hope for a new deal with the International Monetary Fund in May to maintain financial stability. In December 2019 in Paris, leaders of the four countries agreed to hold more talks on the Ukrainian eastern conflict, but the plan was wrecked by the novel coronavirus. The conflict that broke out in 2014 has killed more than 13,000 people. The US has arrested two men wanted by Japan on charges that they enabled the escape of former Nissan boss Carlos Ghosn out of the country. The authorities said a former US Army Special Forces soldier and another man in Massachusetts were detained. They said former US Green Beret Michael Taylor and his son Peter Taylor helped Ghosn flee to Lebanon. In January, Japan had issued arrest warrants for both men in connection with facilitating the escape on 29 December last year. Ghosn fled while he was awaiting trial on charges of underreporting earnings, breach of trust, and misappropriation of company funds. The former Nissan boss has denied all of these. Asian stock markets are trading mixed with muted participation as investors continue to monitor the reopening of economies amid the coronavirus pandemic. Bucking up the trend, Seoul's Kospi has gained over 0.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is trading fractionally lower. Shanghai Composite has lost a margin while Nikkei 225 is trading flat. Investors remain muted after Japan's trade data for April showed the country's exports in April plunged about 22% as compared to a year earlier. Oil prices have rallied again on signs of improving crude demand and a drawdown in U.S. crude inventories. But gains continue to be capped by concerns over the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. Global benchmark Brent crude settled at nearly $36 a barrel after gaining over 3%. US West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained nearly 5% to clock at about $33.50 a barrel. WTI's June contract expired earlier this week, avoiding the mayhem in May when prices crashed to negative $40 a barrel over storage concerns. Fuel demand has gradually ticked upwards in recent weeks as governments worldwide begin to ease lockdown. Super cyclone AMPHAN has pounded eastern India and Bangladesh, killing 14 people and destroying thousands of homes. In India, 500,000 people have been evacuated, while Bangladesh has moved some 2.4 million people to over 15,000 storm shelters. Officials say the Indian state of West Bengal took the brunt of the storm, with gusting winds of up to 185 kilometers per hour. They said 10 people died in the state and 2 districts have been completely battered by the superstorm. In neighboring Bangladesh, 4 people died by the storm, while power supplies cut off in some districts. Officials said they feared standing crops could be damaged and large tracts of fertile land washed away. Cyclones frequently batter the two countries between April and December, forcing mass evacuations and causing widespread damage. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news.